Hey folks, Jeremiah here, trappingtoday.com, and in this video I'm going to show you exactly how I make my long distance call predator lure that I use on my marten and fisher trapline. Now, if you know me, if you followed my stuff for a while, not an expert, absolutely not an expert in lure making, learning as I go and hoping to share things with you as I learn them. So my history with trying to develop a lure started when I was having trouble finding a long distance call for marten and fisher trapping that would hold up to the weather, be strong, and would withstand wind, rain, especially rain and freezing conditions, and then going back to rain and snow and so on. So I experimented with a lot of things. A lot of lures that I bought didn't work very well for those conditions, especially when the lure was outside of a box. So then basically what I did was skunk essence mixed with Vaseline, petroleum jelly, and that's very common here in Maine. Guys will just heat up some Vaseline, mix in skunk essence, and call it a day, and that makes a great long distance call. That's really all you need. However, I wanted something a little better, and the big problem I found with the petroleum jelly or the Vaseline was that it tended to crust over after a few days being exposed to the air. So when it crusts over, the odor doesn't disperse as well. So you got to go back and re-smear it every couple of days to make sure it's still giving off plenty of odor. I didn't want to get into that issue. So I kept looking and looking and trying to find a different base for the lure. And finally I found this. This is like magic. This is called Super Lube. It is a NLGI2 grade, food grade grease. It is a white, clear lithium grease, multi-purpose. It's used for all kinds of different applications. It's used for food grade equipment, meat grinders and so on. It's used for greasing the action on guns, just a bunch of different things. It has absolutely no scent. It's clean, it's good, and the thing with this stuff is it maintains its greasy state in temperatures all the way down to 40 below zero and higher than 400 degrees above zero. So this is always going to have its grease state. It's not going to freeze, and experimenting with it, I found that it doesn't crust over like the Vaseline does. So this stuff is also extremely expensive. It's like if you buy a container like this, it's close to $1 an ounce. But I think it's worth it. If you buy it in bulk, you can get a little better deal. But anyway, that's our base, and then we get the skunk essence. This is a pure, uncut, pure quill skunk essence, 100%. If you buy most of the skunk essence, you're going to find if you buy online or from catalogs, is going to be tinctured, which is fine. But when it's tinctured, it's diluted quite a bit, and a lot of times you don't know what the actual dilution was from the pure grade, pure form. This is straight out of the skunk. So I've got that. The skunk essence is going to be our long distance calling agent. This is going to, in cold weather, in all conditions, this is going to shoot out for a long ways. The goal of this lure is to get the animal to come to our set from a long distance, and then when they get close to the set, we want our bait to do the work. So the lure isn't actually to get them. What we're doing is we've got boxes and we've got body grip traps, and the animal has to go in the box to get to the bait. So the lure isn't necessarily going to bring it into a box. The lure is going to be up in the tree above them, get them to the set, get them to work the box once they get close and they smell the bait. So that's going to be the bulk of our ingredients. This is 0.4 ounces of skunk essence. So for this lure, this is going to end up getting us 4 4-ounce jars of lure, which you buy a lure, standard price is $20 a jar. So for what we got here, this is going to be $80 worth of lure, essentially. That's $10 right there. Just that skunk essence that we're going to use in this batch is $10 worth, and the price continues to go up. Now we could just stop there and mix this up and call it a day. However, I wanted to make this lure a little better. even though skunk S isn't going to dominate, it's going to be way more powerful than anything else. Animals do have the ability to pick apart different scents from one area, and I was hoping to add a few other attractants in order to have sort of a more of a curiosity and a multi-level attraction to this lure, just to give it a little extra. So what we have here is we have several different musks. We have civet musk oil. I'm going to give you all the ingredients so you can make this at home if you want. 0.2 ounces of civet musk, amberette musk oil. This is tinctured down amberette crystals, 0.2 ounces. Muscaro musk, 0.2 ounces, and Tonquin musk, really good musk, 0.2 ounces of that as well. And so those musks come from different types of animals in different parts of the world. They are a good curiosity. They act as fixatives in lures, which isn't necessarily a big deal in this lure, but for others they can be good there. And musks are generally quite attractive to predators for a number of different reasons. So they play into like a curiosity, a territorial instinct, and so on. And the other thing we have is anise oil. We also have 0.2 ounces of anise. Back when I had my first formulation, I put a whole bunch of anise, and I thought it was a little too much in the lure. But this is a sweet type of smell. It's very popular, like for bear attractant. It's used in fish-based lures. Anise is a really good predator attractant. It's kind of got that sweet odor that I believe it's sort of a food-based type of call for predators. And then finally we have castoreum. This is tinctured beaver castor. And beaver castor, again, extremely good overall predator lure ingredient. Everything's attracted to beaver. Every predator out in the woods smells a little bit something from beaver. They like to go investigate. So beaver castor there. Beaver castor, we have 0.4 ounces of beaver castor. So I bumped that up, and that's going up in price, very expensive because beaver fur is low and there's not a lot of fur being harvested. But I bumped that up a little bit because I wanted to play a bigger part in this lure. So we got all this stuff measured out here. I use a syringe and needle, a couple of needles to do that. I have a glass mixing jar here. It seems it's about the right size. It'll take all of our grease and our added ingredients. What we're going to do first is mix everything up in this cup here. And when you're doing this, the skunk essence, make sure you are in a well-ventilated area and don't wear any clothes or have anything around that you don't want people to smell. And what I learned after I made the mistake 3 times is don't wear a leather belt when you're making this lure. This is incredibly strong lure, and it'll permeate everything around it for a few days. So I kicked out of work for having the leather belt. I couldn't tell where the smell was coming from because I had to change the clothes and I washed up and everything, and it turns out the belt is where it came from. So I'm going to take all my ingredients and I'm just going to dump them in. I'm going to just go over this one more time so that you can, if you haven't written it down and you want to duplicate this lure, I have said for a long time, and I'll continue to say, I'm not a big guy as far as secrets in the whole witchcraft of lure making. I know there's a lot of secret formulas out there, but I kind of tend to think that any trapper that knows the basics can make a really good, effective lure. So I'm not really worried about sharing this with you guys. I want you to know about it. So our castoreum is 0.4 ounces. Just for reference, there's a lot of good guys out there that supply these lures. I'm getting mine from Kaatz Brothers. All this stuff, most of it came from Kaatz Brothers, KAATZ bros.com, and some from F&T for Harvesters Trading Post. Muscaro, 0.2 ounces. It's a thick, syrupy stuff, that Muscaro. Tonquin musk, 0.2 ounces. And I actually measure it with milliliters in a syringe, and 0.2 ounces is about 6 milliliters. It's like 5.9. Amberette musk oil, 0.2 ounces. Anise oil, 0.2 ounces. Civet musk oil, 0.2 ounces. And then the good stuff. Plug your nose, pure tincture, non-tinctured, pure quill, skunk essence. Pure quill, you'll know it's pure quill if you're not paying at least $20 an ounce, then it's not pure quill. 0.4 ounces of pure quill skunk essence. Whew! That is good stuff. And then have a good sturdy mixing stick, because you're going to need, not a big deal for this stuff, this is all liquid stuff, mix it together, but when you mix that grease, this grease you can't do like Vaseline and heat it up and melt it, or like lanolin. You can't do that here. I've tried heating it up and I could never get it to melt. So the grease you're going to have to stir and stir and stir, and it's going to maintain its current state. So then it's really simple. All we got to do is get our grease in the mixing bowl, and this is about 14 ounces of grease. Okay, so again we start with 14 ounces of grease, and it comes out to 2 or 3 ounces of other materials and all those other ingredients. And so basically, you're going to have a little bit of waste here and there, but for the most part, you are dealing with approximately 16 ounces of overall product for this particular recipe. I usually make it in a batch about 5 times this size, but for these purposes, this is for one guy just making his own lures. This is about the right size. That makes sense. So then we're gonna just we're gonna pour this mixture in of all of our ingredients, and then this is where it might get a little bit tedious, because then it's just mixing. We're gonna mix until we can't mix anymore. It's gonna start out, the grease is gonna be real kind of crusty, and it's not gonna want to mix in too smooth with the liquid, and you just kind of keep working it, and it'll start to get a little more better incorporated with the rest of the stuff. You'll notice it turns yellow. That's mostly that skunk and some of those other musks have that yellow odor to them. And then it starts to turn like into more of a taffy consistency. When we get into that taffy, we know we're getting a really good mixture of everything into that grease. So you're going to want to have, this is about the right size mixing container for this batch, and you're going to want to have, again, a really sturdy stick. You're going to want a container that's straight-sided so you can mix it really well, and have some pretty thick material. This glass works great, but you can use a heavy-duty plastic container too. Alright, so as you can see, it's kind of a taffy-like consistency. It is, if I hadn't done a bunch of this before, I probably wouldn't be able to keep talking right now without coughing. That's how strong the odor is of the skunk. So that is the secret to making the lure. Now there's another secret that I learned, and it took me a long time. I'm going to save you a bunch of time here. How the heck do you get it in the bottles? Because it's not like any other lure where you can just take a funnel and pour it in, or the Vaseline, you warm it up and you pour it in while it's warm. That just doesn't work here. So what I found was these are cake frosting things, and actually I will probably show you a link where you can pick these up. They're real easy to get. You can get them on Amazon, eBay or Amazon really cheap. They're nice, thick, sturdy material, and basically they're made for squirting out cake frosting. And what we're going to do is fill them up. We're going to make a cut on the inside, on the corner of them, and we're going to squeeze the lure through that opening and into our bottles. Who would have thought it was that easy? I can't believe how dumb I was when I was first trying to get the lure in these bottles and trying a bunch of different things, and finally it clicked. I said, why am I not using this? So I started with a couple of Ziploc bags, and that worked okay, but then when I found these, I thought I was crazy for not figuring it out sooner. So you want to have a mixing spoon that has somewhat of a flat surface, so you can scrape all the last of that stuff out. That's really valuable. This lure is we're dealing with stuff that's $5 an ounce, so we want to make sure we get all of it, as much of it as we can. Plus it makes for less that you have to clean up later. Alright, so then once we get that done, we can take this frosting thing and we can work our lure down, and then these are, let's move this to the side here. I'm going to show you our individual glass lure jars. And then what we have to do is just make a cut in the opening of this. I'll grab a knife. You can cut it based on the size of opening that you want to have. I made a pretty decent sized opening, and then without getting too much squeezed back behind you, you can put a thick rubber band on the back of this, and then we're going to fill up our bottles. With our long distance call predator lure. Another trick is looks like we ended up with just about 4 4-ounce bottles. Maybe a tad. Yeah, I'd say that's about right. One trick is when you get these filled up a little bit too much, you can pound them down against a hard surface. And you do that several times and it'll get that lure to settle down. It looks like we lost a little bit from wastage on the edge of the different bottles and so on. So we may have ended up with 15 ounces instead of 16 ounces. It was pretty darn close. So anyway, if you bought all these ingredients, you probably end up close to breaking even because you're not buying them in bulk. But the beauty of this is, you know exactly what's in this now, and you can make adjustments based on whether you want to try different things. Maybe you don't want to put any of this stuff in and save more money, or maybe you want to try a whole bunch of amberette and put a bunch of that in instead of the other ingredients. Or there's a whole variety of different things you could try. You could do 4 bottles, and you could put one of each of the musks in one of the bottles and make smaller batches or whatever. So a variety of things. But anyway, that is the secret long distance call predator lure that I make, and works well to attract marten and fisher on my trap line. I hope you give it a shot and try it out on your line.